Hello and welcome to Liberty Nation TV with your host, Jeff Charles. Guns, guns, and more guns. Along with all of the other madness going on in the political world, the Second Amendment seems to be taking center stage again because the Supreme Court is set to hear a case that could be pivotal in the debate over gun rights. The anti-gun lobby has ramped up its efforts amid record numbers of gun purchases. To discuss the issue, I have with me Liberty Nation's chief political correspondent, Graham Noble, to discuss the issue. Welcome to the program, Graham.
Good to be with you, Jeff.
Good. And now, you recently wrote about how the failed ATF nominee, David Chipman, made a really stupid comment when he said it's easier to buy a gun than it is to buy a beer. Now, you and I, as people who enjoy both, we know that's not true. But do you think he was just being hyperbolic, or do you think he's actually trying to convince the audience that this is true?
Well, first of all, Jeff, and I should add that I don't know Mr. Chipman personally, so I may be misjudging the gentleman, but watching that interview, when he made that statement, he doesn't strike me as the sort of guy who has much of a sense of humor. And again, I could be wrong about that. At least if he does have a sense of humor, he's certainly not the kind of man who will make a joke, a flippant joke about guns in an interview on national television. And as I watched the interview, I paid close attention to his body language and his facial expressions. There was no hint of, he gave no indication at all that he was trying to be funny or flippant or and he also did not, there was no sign that he was acknowledging the fact that that was a hyperbolic statement. Mm-hmm. He said it in a very matter-of-fact way. As I said in my article, he may as well have been stating that water was wet. That's just how matter-of-factly he said it. It came out of his mouth. It was clear that he was, obviously he doesn't believe it. He can't possibly believe it. I'm sure he is very well versed in the gun laws of the United States and the gun laws in all 50 states. So in other words, the bottom line answer to your question is that no, he wasn't being hyperbolic. He was trying to tell the viewing audience that actually was a fact, that in most of the many parts of the United States, it is actually easier to buy a gun than it is to buy a beer.
And that kind of brings up a point that I've noticed about the anti-gun crowd. A lot of their positions are based on ignorance about guns. Like they just don't know a lot about guns. They don't know how they work. They don't know the laws surrounding them. And I think that the anti-gun people kind of play on that ignorance. So do you think that this is kind of an example of that?
Oh yeah, completely. I mean, as much as America has this very strong gun culture, and there is a very large percentage of Americans, still a minority, but a large percentage of Americans are gun owners, own one or more guns. But that section of the population that doesn't own guns, doesn't have guns in their house, has never really been around guns. I mean, they just know nothing whatsoever about guns, and they know nothing about the gun laws. So yes, to your point, it's very easy for the anti-gun lobby, the anti-Second Amendment lobby, to be more precise. They do play on that ignorance, and they think they can get away with saying absolutely anything, and that the people who are not familiar with guns will simply believe them.
Yeah, that makes sense. And, I just lately, the gun issue is always in the news to some extent, right? Especially when there's a mass shooting or something of that nature. But in general, I'm seeing a lot of chatter from the anti-gun crowd lately. And it seems to me that they're ramping up their efforts to kind of push more gun control. Why do you think they're getting more aggressive right now?
Well, I think there's a couple of factors involved in that, Jeff. And the first one is the political situation in the country right now. I mean, the Democrats have the White House. They have control of the House of Representatives, and just by, if nothing else, by virtue of a potential Kamala Harris tie-breaking vote in the Senate, they barely, by the skin of their teeth, have control of the Senate. So they have complete control of the executive branch and the legislative branch, and so they feel this is the golden opportunity for them because the way things are going, they obviously must feel that the kind of almost monopoly they have on American political power could well end a year from now. And so they're trying to seize the day, if you like, seize the opportunity to do as much as they can to damage Second Amendment rights now. And I think there's another factor in here. And I think there's almost like a mass consciousness in the country right now, I believe, where a lot of people are very, very uneasy about what's going on. And a lot of people are getting very angry. And, crime is on the rise, mostly due to the defund the police movement in certain democratic cities and states. And so we got crime on the rise, we've got people getting angry and uneasy. And also the left found out on January 6th of this year, there was a massive protest / demonstration on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. And of course, it wasn't the grand attempt to overthrow the government as the left has portrayed it. But nevertheless, I think it shook them up because they realized that conservatives now conservatives were always pretty meek and mild and polite and civilized. And, they didn't go out into the streets shouting and screaming and waving banners, but right. They are now. They're at school board meetings, yelling at, school boards, members of school boards. They are out in the streets protesting masks. They're out in the streets protesting vaccines, or to be more accurate, they're not protesting the vaccines, they're protesting vaccine mandates. And so suddenly people on the right are expressing their anger in public. And of course, a lot of people on the right have guns. And I think that concerns the left. So they're getting more anxious to do what they can to take away people's rights to buy and carry guns.
That's an interesting perspective. I hadn't heard that one before, but it does make sense that maybe they'd be a little bit concerned because now you do see conservatives getting more politically active, like you mentioned, the school board meetings, and they know a lot of us like guns. So it does make sense that would kind of motivate them to want to tamp down on it more. So, and a lot of this makes sense, right? But when it comes to the overall persuasion battle on gun rights and in gun control, who do you think is winning? I see a lot of gun control propaganda out there, but again, record numbers of people are buying guns. So who do you think is winning this battle?
Oh, I think absolutely the pro-gun, if you like, pro-Second Amendment lobby is absolutely winning the battle right now. And I think it comes back to a point that we were just discussing a moment ago, where the anti-gun lobby has, they have a history of saying such outrageously inaccurate things about guns and gun owners. And I think people are starting to see through that. It's kind of their rhetoric is getting tired. It's getting old. It's like they need to come up with something better, better arguments. And of course, once again, I already mentioned it, the rising crime in certain big cities and certain states, I think it makes people fearful. I myself have, been a gun owner for years, and only recently, some people that I knew who are not, they were never anti-gun, but they weren't really big on guns. They've never owned guns before themselves, although they grew up with their parents or grandparents having guns, but they never have owned guns. One particular young couple I know recently approached me and mentioned that they were actually thinking of going out and buying a gun for just for having the house, just for security in their house. And so, yeah, I definitely think the pro-gun side right now is on the ascendant and is winning the argument.
Good. I hope so. Well, this could be a very exciting time for gun owners and those who want to become gun owners. So we are going to continue to keep an eye on how this unfolds. Thanks, Graham, for joining me.
You're welcome, Jeff. Thank you.
And remember, this show is proudly sponsored by LibertyNation.com, where you can access podcasts, breaking news and analysis, and a range of biting and brilliant shows to whet your appetite for freedom and your fondness for the great American Constitution. Just go to LibertyNation.com on your browser or hit Rumble, YouTube, or check out our Liberty Nation News Roku channel. I'm Jeff Charles. Thank you for watching. This program is a production of LibertyNation.com, conservative news where truth matters.
Who are we? We are Americans that believe in liberty. We are a project of the nonprofit One Generation Away. We are patriots who apply the founding principles to the issues of today.
And they keep moving the goalposts on us.
We are educators and commentators who love America and the Constitution. Who are we? We are Liberty Nation.